Are you a successful IT professional and need help optimizing your compensation plan, navigating your taxes, investments, and protection? It's time to rewire and retire with Mike. Listen in as Mike gets you the answers you need to move forward. Now, on to the show with Mike.
Hello and welcome to Rewire and Retire with Mike Guarino. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good, Eric. How are you?
Doing fantastic. I'm still working from home, 7.5 years going strong. So for me, it's nothing new, but we talked about this before. My wife's working from home now, so she's making me shower and do things that I don't normally do. So, well, I'm kidding. Okay, I do shower. Let's not spread rumors. But how are you?
I am showered, I'm shaven, and I'm ready to go, man. I'm out of the house. We're actually at the office today because we come in a couple times a week to check the mail and just kick the tires and make sure everything's okay here. Yes. But it's good to get out. Feel like a bear coming out of hibernation when I come to the office.
I know, right? It's how I feel when I walk outside. It's like, and it looks good out here. And it was really nice, The weather just needs to cooperate a little bit more. We've just had some very strange weather, so now that it's warm again, it was warm last weekend, 77 degrees, and then we got 8 inches of snow 3 days later, and then the snow was gone the next day. Then
that's a bonus.
This weekend was beautiful. Yeah, very strange. Yeah. But, in this strange time, we're being pulled in many different directions, and we were pulled in different directions on the last couple podcasts. And I know that you want to get back to the white paper that you did about 7 financial challenges IT executives and professionals face. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we were through the first 4, correct?
Yeah, we finished up with external pressures and expectations, which was topic number 4. That's right.
All right. So I am going to challenge you. I'm going to say the first 4 one at a time, and you're going to give us your best tip on each one of those, so we can recap those, and then we'll finish out the rest of the white paper on this podcast today.
Perfect.
You up for the challenge?
Of course. We should play the Jeopardy music right now. I'm a little,
that'd be great.
Little afraid you're quizzing
me. Just hum it?
No.
I can't. I don't have the tune in my head. All right, let's get started then. Alex, tell him what he's won. All right, number 1, your complicated financial picture.
Tech tip, take the time to learn the intricacies of your compensation and benefits plans at work.
That's a great tip. All right, number 2, you have a concentrated stock position.
That's an easy one. Consider reducing concentrated stock positions over time.
All right, sounds good. And for those that have questions about that, call Mike because he can answer that. All right, number 3, the timing game.
There's the tune.
There it
Timing
is.
The stock market seldom works. Commit to a strategy that can help you avoid single stock exposure and risk.
All right. Number 4 was external pressures and expectations.
Yep. And the tech tip for that one is write down where you want to be about 5 years from now, both professionally and financially. List any changes that you might have in that window and work with an advisor to help you work towards those goals.
All right. And so
today, I am for hire. I have
heard that. Let's get to the rest of this white paper. We're going to do topic 5, 6, and 7, right?
Right.
And that's, I know that we have a lot to cover, and it's good stuff. So, and not only is it good stuff, it is incredibly timely because it's all about stock and kind of what's going on and with the markets the way they are and the way they have been for the last, month and a half. It's crazy out there. Exactly. Unfortunately. And I think that people hear a lot in the media, which drives some fear and some panic and some just some things that we don't like to feel. And mainly it's because those channels are trying to sell advertisements. I like to be sitting in a room, even though it's virtually with you, to sit down and talk to you because I know that you're not going to sensationalize anything. You're just bringing us great information without all the hoopla.
Yeah, and in full disclosure, Eric, we work with people that we do these exact things for. So it's not like just a white paper that exists in black and white. It's what we do. It's a roadmap that we follow. So yeah, you're right. In full transparency, what we try to accomplish is keeping people tethered to their finances, keeping them in focus, but not letting it consume them. outsource it to a professional. We can definitely help you. So if the listening audience out there is not working with an advisor, find one, give me a call, whatever you want to do. But these next 3 tips that we're going to go over today, or the 3 topics, I think are going to resonate a lot because what's gone on in the market recently, unfortunately, like we said.
All right, well, let's get started with number 5, and that is being too close to your company stock.
Right. And this ties into emotions, right? And a lot of times when we work with people, I can see a portfolio and know what companies they did work at or currently work at, because you guessed it. If you put all the investments into a pie chart, you'll see big slices. Current examples are, in my area, at least the people that I work with are ADP, UPS, Pfizer, J&J, you name it, right? They come in and we do an examination on their portfolio, and I'm like, oh, so you're working at, this company now, but you must have worked here. And they're like, yeah, how did you know? I said, because you have a ton of stock in that company, right? Mm-hmm. And what you hear from people, and it's the right reason, right? They think they worked at this company, they've been putting money into the stock purchase plan. Maybe they buy it at a discount, maybe they don't. The stock's had a really good run. What stock didn't have a great run in the last 10 years? You could go on and on. But, they see all these wonderful things that the stock's allowed them to do, right? Retire early, or pay for kids' educations, or put the pool in the backyard, or extravagant vacations. Great. Those are all awesome things. But did it take just that one stock to get you there? What if you had a diversified portfolio that could have done the same thing and eliminate the single stock risk? So there's a lot of emotion behind hanging on to a company stock and being too close to it. And man, I'll tell you, sometimes it's like trying to pry a pearl from an oyster, right? I'm not saying you have to get rid of it. I'm just saying if we really want to address this and we really want to diversify, we have to have a conversation non-emotionally, just about understanding that this isn't the best or optimal position for you to have all your eggs in one basket, right? We just had the Easter Bunny come by. All your eggs in one basket, not a good thing. So being too close to the company stock because it's proven itself to you. And I'm here to say, yeah, you're probably right, but there's other ways to accomplish the same things you were trying to do in what I call, less risk potentially in depending on the mix.
All right. Sounds like we're wrapping up 5. So what would be your tech tip for being too close to your company stock?
2 things. Work with a professional to tell you how good or not good your company stock is, meaning compare it to other things, because if that's all you have nothing to compare it to. So don't believe your stock is better than it really is. That would be the way I'd leave it at everyone's feet here today.
Yeah. And the thing is that I think a lot of people think that stock is tied to what they think about their company in a lot of ways. And so if you have a lot of pride in the company you work for, which I hope you do, I think that makes for a happier work environment and more satisfaction, is that you really take pride in your company. That does not mean that the stock is the best thing for you. It means your company's awesome and you like the people that you work with, and that's great. And you do everything you can to make that company successful, but you're not the only person contributing to it, or you're not the only thing influencing that company positively or negatively, which that's what happens with the stock. It's either positive or negative. So I think it's really important to have an outside party kind of detach yourself from that stock. And you mentioned emotion earlier, and I know that's our number 6, emotional influence.
Yeah, and that's good that you kind of tied those 2 together, because there's a lot of overlap between being too close to your company stock and the emotional influence that you have with that stock. And it's kind of, it's a different way of looking at almost the same thing, but it's saying that your emotions, can lead you to irrational decision making. And again, we have a lot of tools and techniques as advisors, right? There's really good software out there that we have access to. And I'm a software guy, so we'll leave it there, right? But, we have a lot of really great ways of doing an analysis on a portfolio, on a specific stock. And what we try to do is educate people and say, look, this is what your portfolio looks like when I run it through my software. And this is, who you told me about yourself, who you are as an investor. And this is optimal for you. These allocations are optimal for you. So let's have a trajectory. Let's move away, have a plan of unloading some of that company stock and coming to a more diversified portfolio over time. I can't stress that enough. Over time, right? Because we have to pay attention to taxes and all those other things along the way. but have a glide path to a diversified portfolio outside of your company stock. That's how I would summarize number 5. And going into number 6, the emotional influence. Well, you kind of hinted at it before, right? Emotional influence. Well, if I'm a good worker in corporate America, well, what do they reward me with? They're going to give me more stock, right? Performance shares or maybe options grants or restricted stock. So, again, we're compounding that same problem. And, but you think of it like, how does Mike Guarino come along and say, hey, Eric, you've worked at company XYZ for 10 years and you just got promoted to from VP to senior vice president, and, good for you. All these good, perks come along with that. And by the way, we're going to give you some more stock. Well, Eric walks away. What are you thinking right now? What are you thinking when the company turns around and says, you've done a great job. Here's a big blob of our stock for you.
Yeah, I'm thinking, fantastic. Thank you so much. And then I want to hang on to that because it's a gift, right? You don't give away or you don't sell your gifts. That's kind of
right.
I think that's the mindset I'd be in. Man, if I do this, I'm a traitor, right?
Well, you can always re-gift it. No, I'm just kidding. But the thing is, right. So you've gotten rewarded at your company with more stock, and a promotion came along with that. Now, imagine calling your advisor that day and saying, hey, Mike, I just wanted to bring you to an awareness. I got a promotion. And if you were my client, I'd say, that's awesome, dude. Congratulations. What does it look like? How many people are under your, in your hierarchy and all these things? Did your executive benefits change? Anything like that change, right? And you're going to be like, well, they did give me, X amount of shares of stock. And I'm going to say, oh, okay, well, we already had a problem with you being super concentrated in the stock and you just got more. So how do I get into your head and say, we're compounding the problem that we knew we had with more stock, and that's the emotional influence. You're working. We joked around before we went online today about rewarding a monkey with a peanut, right? We talked about that. Well, and I hate to bring it to that level, but just think about it. You give a monkey a peanut, and then you try to take that peanut away from him. He's not going to let it go.
No.
And he's going to think that was a reward for good behavior or doing a good job. So that's the emotional influence that we have to pay attention to. It's an emotional attachment. It's I've been rewarded, and now you're trying to take that reward from me. And good advisors will sit back and look and say, no, it's not like I'm taking your reward from you. I'm trying to keep you tethered to the task that we're embarking on since you walked through the door and we've been working together. And, look, I'm not saying unload everything all at once. Again, it's a glide path to get the concentration out of the portfolio over time. And I understand emotions play a huge factor in that. And we just have to pay attention to it and just understand that we're on the same side of the table all the time. I'm not going to make you uncomfortable doing it, but I'm going to keep bringing it up until we have a plan of addressing this, that trajectory, that glide path, like we talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that stock is not a physical item that you would say, I need it or I don't need it, right? It's not something where you can make it. So if your company rewarded you and you got a promotion and then they gave you a $100,000 travel bus, like for camping, and two things, you hate driving and you hate camping, right. That's an easy decision to go, what could I sell that for? and get that would help me out more. Like, I could buy that minivan that my wife has been looking for. I could buy that, that sports car that I would have a whole lot more fun, riding around in, or whatever it is. It's easy to make that decision, but the stock is not I use it or I don't use it item. It's something that, that's part of my portfolio. So it should be in there. I think that's a real problem because we can't a lot of times separate what we need and what we don't need and how it could work better for us. Even working better for us means it's not there anymore, right? It worked better for us because we sold it and got 5 different stocks to diversify or whatever. Even in the same type of genre, I think it's hard for people to to realize that it's just an item that's there. It's a tool. It's a resource to help you get to where you want to go. And it's not a giant bus.
Yeah, and I'll bring it back to this, right? When I was a kid, different days. My kids get everything nowadays, and they get it immediately. And I'm not going to go down that. Maybe some other podcast will go down that alley, but
we'll bring in the therapist.
Right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Bring in my sister. She's a therapist. I call her sometimes on the way home from work.
Oh, I would love to have her as a guest on this podcast. Oh man, the stories she could tell.
We're not going to do that. No. But let's go. I'll bring you into my childhood a little bit, right?
All
So,
right.
grew up in New Jersey, and my parents, Christmas would come, and I'd open up all these packages that were soft, right? The gift wrap under the tree, they're soft. You open them up. Oh,
Yep.
underwear, great. Okay,
Yep.
socks, great. Then we go to grandma's house. She's got 2 packages underneath the tree. They're soft too, and they have my name on them. I'm like, oh, good, underwear, great, socks, great. Well, that's just it. Right? I don't need underwear or socks. I already got them. I don't even want them. And you're just making the problem worse. That's what we're talking about with the stock. Hey, Eric, attaboy, you got that promotion to senior VP. Good for you. What did you get? I got more stock.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Right? So it's a hole that we got to work out of. Again, it's over time. It's a trajectory. It's a glide path. That's how I'll leave it.
All right. You've kind of said it a little bit already, but I'm sure it's going to revolve around this. What would be your tech tip for number 6, emotional influence?
Yeah, great. Thanks for asking. Emotions can lead to irrational decisions, so don't fall in love with a stock just because you work at that company.
All right. That brings us to number 7, which is paralyzed by taxes.
Indeed. And many people are, right? And we talked about being too close to the stock and the emotional influence. Those are the other 2 topics that we covered earlier. Paralyzed by taxes. Oh my gosh. This is 2-pronged, right? Paralyzed by taxes. I bought the stock for, $100 a share. Now it's $200 a share. If I sell it, I'm going to have to pay gains on it. I'm going to be like, yeah, that's great. People are like, but I already pay a lot in taxes. I'm like, yeah, but do you know the tax code right now is pretty accommodating for long-term capital gains. As long as you owned it over a year, it's taxed at a much different rate than ordinary income is. And a lot of times that's your advantage, right? And it depends on what tax bracket you're in. I get that. But again, the tax issue is multifaceted or multi-pronged, meaning I don't want to pay taxes on it. But the other part is it's an excuse. It gives people an excuse not to sell the stock, right? That's and that keeps them with the ability to be emotionally attached to it. And that keeps them, being too close to the company stock. And it's funny, I work with a lot of people in corporate, as you could imagine, and, they say, okay, Mike, here's the deal. When the stock hits, this number, I'm going to get out of this many shares. And you know how many times that happens?
Yeah, probably not a lot.
No, not a lot at all. And it went from 100 to 125. Mike, we'll tap out some of it at 150. Okay, so and you can see that going on and on and on. So so the bell that I'm kind of ringing right now with people is, we unfortunately had a pretty big shift in the stock market at the beginning of 2020, right? We started off decent and then just took a plunge based on, COVID-19. And again, that was a panic in the market, and we'll get back to fundamentals at some point, but panic, obviously, people throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we've talked about that. But being paralyzed by taxes, now's a great time to take a look at what your gains are in stocks, in your portfolios. And what a good advisor will do is pair up losses and gains, right? If you have a gain in this and a loss in that, right? Well, we can pair those up if those amounts are equal and net you out at 0, right? So we had a gain over here, we had a loss over here, we sold both investments, and now we've paired off that loss. So what did we do? Well, we got out of 2 positions. We got out of a position with a gain, we got out of a position with a loss, and now we sold both of those positions, and now we're sitting on cash generated via the sale of those, right? And that's perfect because now you can start dollar cost averaging that money back into that portfolio that we talked about earlier under topic 6, emotional influence. Now we can get that glide path or that trajectory to that diversified portfolio with this money that we just came up with from pairing off a loss and gain. It's a little bit complicated, and I don't advise people to do it on their own because you really need to know what you're doing here. Ask your advisor, ask me. I'm here to help. We do it all the time. Usually we do it towards the end of the year, Eric, because that's when it makes sense to do it. But again, with this sell-off in the market, it's like making lemonade out of lemons. We had a big downturn. There could be some stocks with a loss, other stuff with a gain. Hey, does it make sense to pair this up now and have cash that we can redeploy into a more diversified portfolio? I love it. I think it's a great time to look at that now. And if anybody in the listening audience wants me to do an analysis on your portfolio, shoot it over my way. I'd be happy to help you with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I like the fact that you alluded to number 3, which is, the timing game. Nobody should be playing the timing game because, again, there's so much emotional influence, going back to 6, emotional influence in that, you don't want to sell out too quickly. So you just keep hiring, raising that number, like you said, or the reverse, right? Well, it's still doing okay. It's lost a little bit, but we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. And all of a sudden it's losing more and more and more. And you just haven't, you're frozen in place. So I think all these play together so well. And obviously that's why you wrote the paper. But before we wrap up, what is the tech tip for number 7?
I think we all know, don't let taxes be the reason that you keep a stock longer than you'd like to in your portfolio.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And Eric, I want to jump in real quick. I know we had another couple things we wanted to cover, but real fast. The other reason I hear people staying in the stock, well, it pays a good dividend, so I'm going to hang on to it. You got to be careful because, a good dividend can get cut, and companies cut dividends when they're in tough times. And, we're going to get to the crystal ball in a little bit, and I don't want to ruin that, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, you really have to have someone objective looking at your portfolio, because whether or not you want to admit it to yourself, you are emotionally attached to that. Have somebody who, is ambivalent. Have somebody who's just like black and white. Hey, this is my X-ray, if you will, of your portfolio. Here's what you told me about yourself. Here's what you want. Here's your goals. Here's your wishes. Here's your needs. Here's your wants. Okay, this is a trajectory. This is a path. This is a plan. Let's go down this route. Don't let dividends, don't let taxes, don't let emotional influence, keep you in that stock. And don't try to time it. You hit it on the head jumping back to number 3. Don't try to time it. What are you trying to time it for? You're never going to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this, just clearing up the whole dividend thing. Before you buy stock, you can research and find out if a company pays dividends, right?
That's right.
So if you are in a stock currently that's paying you a dividend, but you're either overconcentrated or you're whatever the case may be, if you, Mike, are saying, hey, this would be a good idea to get out of this stock, or at least partially out of it, they don't have to worry about maybe losing a dividend if you're helping them to find another company that pays dividends on their stocks. So there's more than one ways to skin a cat, I think is the saying, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Back to the cats again.
Back to the cats.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? You're exactly right. And like I said, the dividends, let me jump back. A lot of people stay in the stock for the dividend. That's true. And there's other dividends. There's other stocks or mutual funds or you name it, other investments that pay dividends as well. Do they make sense for your portfolio? Number one, do you need dividends, right? Why is it suddenly important? If you need it for the income, that's great. But, what I find is these people with large stock positions, they reinvest the dividend, Eric, and that makes the problem worse, right? So imagine this. Dividend reinvestment simply means when the company declares a dividend and they pay it out, rather than pay it out to you in cash, they're paying it out to you in what? More shares of company stock. Yeah. Yep. So what's one of the first things I address to somebody, or one of the first techniques that's super painless, super easy to do? Stop reinvesting the dividend. Come on. You have enough of it. Stop. Reinvest the dividend. Let it accumulate in cash. And again, that trajectory, that glide path. Let's start diversifying the portfolio, take the dividends out, and buy, a diversified portfolio with those dividends. Now, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but dividends are an excuse for people to stay in the stock. Dividends are an easy thing to turn on or off, and dividends are an easy way, by turning them off, to diversify out of a large concentrated stock position, provided you don't need the income.
Got it. Mike, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you mentioned a crystal ball earlier, and really the rumor around the neighborhood is that you have a crystal ball in your office. So can I ask you a question? You ready?
The rumor is true, and you may ask me a question. I just want to go on the record that my crystal ball does not work. It's hypothetical, but we can play this game. I'd love to. Sure, absolutely. So here we go. We're going to play that game. Sure.
Mike, what does your crystal ball tell you? You like that?
Yeah. Ask again later. No, that's the 8 ball. Sorry.
That's the magic 8 ball. Yeah.
Right. My crystal ball. Okay. So kind of being serious here for a moment, 2020, the calendar flipped over to 2020. We saw panic selling in the market due to, basically an epidemic that I can't remember ever seeing one before. And it was a panic sell in the market. And Warren Buffett says, buy fear, sell greed. There was a lot of fear in the market, a lot of selling that caused it to drop, 20 or between 20 and 30%, depending on what you're looking at. And And then we hit the bottom and now we're bouncing up, right? And we were joking before the call too. I don't know why we were talking about monkeys and cats before we jumped on the podcast today, Eric, but we talked about the dead cat bounce, right?
Dead cat bounce.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have 2 cats. They were strays. I rescued them. We're good. But the dead cat bounce is just, if you drop a cat out the window, it's going to, hit the ground and bounce up to some degree. And I kind of think in my heart of hearts, that's where we are with this market right now, because the fear was the selling. The bounce is what we're going through now because we're in this unknown territory. Is there going to be testing? Is there going to be a cure? Are we going to phase roll out back to work? The problem is fundamentals are going to be really, really bad. At least I think fundamentals are going to be really bad for the second quarter earnings. So what we have time right now to do is prepare our portfolios, prepare our investments for what I see in my crystal ball as a very turbulent time ahead, where fundamentals matter again. Right now, the fundamentals don't really matter. Corporations got through, Q1 of 2020 with okay earnings. They were spotty. They were okay. At the print today, oil's down to $11 a barrel. I mean, this is nuts. So eventually, fundamentals will matter again in the economy. And the markets, I believe, the market's not going to like what corporations are going to be printing as earnings for the second quarter of 2020, potentially creating another sell-off in the market again, and driven by fundamentals this time, not driven by panic or fear. So that's what we're preparing our clients for. That's what we're preparing our portfolios for. And if I could beat a drum and say to everybody, what can I do between April and June? Get your ducks in a row, talk to an advisor, consider, if it makes sense, consider taking some risk off the table, because I think fundamentals will matter again. And I think we're not going to like what we see coming out of earnings Q2 of 2020.
All right. Well, even though it's broken, I think you had some pretty good insight there. Even though the ball didn't work, you did. So I appreciate that. And I know that all the listeners do as well, speaking honest and frankly with them. So again, Mike, thank you so much for your time today. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah. Wash your hands and do everything everybody's telling you to do. And let's hope we get back to work before I look like Grizzly Adams.
That sounds good to me. Next time, like I said, we need to do a video podcast so we can just make sure everybody's clean, shaven, showering, and all that. It'll hold me accountable as well. Mike, again, always a pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Eric.
You bet. And thank you all for listening to the Rewire and Retire podcast with Mike Guarino. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Mike comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks so much for listening today. For everyone at Guarino Wealth Management, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Rewire and Retire podcast. If you want to learn more about how we can help troubleshoot your financial and retirement strategies, click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Guarino Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA/SIPC.
Dollar cost averaging involves continuous investment in securities regardless of fluctuation in price levels of such securities. An investor should consider their ability to continue purchasing through fluctuating price levels. Such a plan does not assure a profit and does not protect against loss in declining markets.